Hey, yo, is this thing on? What up, what up? It's Rutherford coming at you with probably the most important lesson I would ever have to teach in biology. And let's start with my garden. So, in my garden, I be growing broccoli right now. Most of the broccoli has gone to seed. That means that the broccoli, if you let it, will grow and put out flowers. The flower is an invitation to pollinators to come and collect the nectar, sugary nectar, and when they are there, they will get pollen on them. So we have the nectar, which will be sweet, and then they will accidentally get the pollen. That is the haploid gamete that is going to then go to a different broccoli plant, accidentally stuck on the legs of our wonderful pollinators, and will pollinate. There's little pictures of plant sperm, the haploid gamete that will go to another plant and pollinate and then create a seed. This is the plants trying to reproduce. When broccoli is opening up, it is trying to reproduce. And we have birds, bats, bugs, as all pollinators there. And then the plant makes a seed. The plant is just trying to reproduce, right? So that it can grow, so there can be more of that plant. And that is what broccoli is trying to do. Now broccoli, the reason I try and grow broccoli in my life is because it is a real food. Broccoli grows out of the ground. Everything that grows out of the ground is something that we've evolved to eat as human beings. We eat real things and we are real people. These real things have real macronutrients, fats, carbs, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids, and then you can break that stuff down, digest it, and the 5 types of digestion, and that will be incorporated into your own cells when you're making new cells. So you break down broccoli bits, and that's just protein, carbs, fats, and nucleic acids, and broccoli form, and then you digest it, and then you go through mitosis to make new cells, and you rearrange those things into human form. That's what eating is, okay? So you eat this real food. The issue that we currently have in our society is we've moved away from real food to fake food because fake food is more convenient, or perhaps it hits our taste buds in a different way. We could say it's tastier because it is just, they put all the stuff in it that makes it really addicting. Sugar, salt, fats, and then just going for convenience. So the idea was to feed more people, but the problem is that we're feeding more people bad stuff instead of good stuff, and so that's why we have a variety of different health problems that we're experiencing today, okay? The ultra-processed food is not just an issue for human health, it's also an issue for the climate. In order to produce fake food that is unhealthy, you have to use power plants, not a real plant, whereas real food comes from a real plant. You have to use a power plant. And when you are burning fossil fuels, coal, gas, or oil, you are putting greenhouse gases like CO2 into the air. That CO2 into the air is going to be a blanket that traps the Earth's heat. That's called the greenhouse effect. That's why CO2 is one of our greenhouse gases. And that is going to, every time the sun, I just found this out, on the moon, there's nothing to trap any heat. So if it's nighttime on the moon, it's negative 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Negative 250 degrees Fahrenheit. If the sun's hitting you on the moon, it's 250 degrees Fahrenheit. 500 degrees difference because there's no atmosphere to stabilize the temperature. There's no moisture or atmosphere or anything to stabilize the temperature. Now we have this nice atmosphere filled with water and a whole bunch of other things that gives us a stable temperature so we don't experience the full force of the sun and it doesn't get too cold at night. So we're in this beautiful sweet spot on this wonderful planet we call Earth, and Earth is the only one that can do it. We can't be living on Mars, we can't be living on the moon. It's like unbelievably hard to get there, and then it's just, we haven't evolved there for 2 billion years, humans or any life. And so this is the planet we got, and that's the one that I really want to take care of, and I think is important for us to understand. When there's more CO2 from the combustion reaction, anytime you burn a fossil fuel, so that you're driving a truck or you're creating plastic or, you are manufacturing candies and artificial garbage and things that are frankenfoods or fake foods. You are burning fossil fuels in order to do that, right? As opposed to broccoli, which I put a seed in the yard and then I water it. And it goes through photosynthesis and it actually pulls carbon dioxide out of the air. So that, not only can we avoid burning fossil fuels or avoid burning so much by just reducing our energy usage and reducing our consumption of a bunch of food that's really just unhealthy for us anyway and is just designed, made in a factory in order to be really, really addictive. Instead, you can start to eat real food, and that real food that grows out of the ground from plants is going to pull carbon dioxide out of the air to reduce that greenhouse effect. So anytime that you have green things growing, that's going through the process of photosynthesis. You have a chloroplast that inside of plant cells is pulling CO2, one of the greenhouse gases. It pulls it out of the air in order to make a plant, reversing global warming, reversing climate change, reversing our greenhouse effect. That's called carbon sequestration. So photosynthesis pulls carbon out of the air, and that carbon sequestration puts it into the soil. Now, with more of those elements in the soil, including our other elements from water and then fertilizer from nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur, those elements in the soil means that the plant can grow, because that's what a plant is made of. The plant is made of the same stuff that we're made of. And the plant is made of the same stuff as cow poop or dead cows or dead leaves. And when you have animals integrated into an area, their poop and their pee and potentially their death, if it can be broken down in nice, healthy, real soil, not dirt, but real soil that has stuff growing in it and has water and poop and pee that's being broken down by your decomposers, fungi, and bacteria, then you have carbon just continuously being pulled out of the air. That greenhouse gas just pulled out of the air, the total reverse of the fossil fuels. So we have a big solution, and we are growing stuff. It's green, it's beautiful, and if you're not growing grass to feed cows, which we could potentially eat, you could be growing broccoli or any other vegetable or fruit that you enjoy eating. Every time that that stuff is growing and you are eating real food and buying real food, that means that you are supporting the growth of real soil, if we're talking about organic or regenerative practices. Now, the regenerative agriculture is a big process or a big idea of new scale farming, because old school farming is not working very well. We're feeding a lot of people, but the soil is not healthy. It's turning into dirt. And that's because we're forgetting the basic properties of nature. In nature, we want diversity. There are animals pooping and peeing on the land. The soil is covered, meaning things are growing on it. If you just let things go, every dystopian movie or whatever, if you let your yard go, if you don't pick the weeds, everything's going to be green, okay? If we let the plants just grow and you let animals poop and pee and let things live there, then there's roots in the soil. There are things growing. There is photosynthesis happening and CO2 being sequestered. And that's what they mean by like keep soil covered. Now, we don't have to just let things go and just let weeds do whatever. I pick weeds in my yard and then I plant in some parts of my yard, and then I will plant a bunch of stuff so that there's something actually growing in the soil. Then you minimize the soil disturbance. We thought before that we had to go through and pull tractors and till the soil and whatnot. Just turns out it destroys all of the decomposers, the fungi and bacteria that are helping the soil break down that stuff so you can have a cycle of those nutrients, the macronutrients of proteins, lipids, fats, and carbs being broken down into our carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur. That's fertilizer to let new stuff grow. And then the cow gets to eat that, right? And then the cow lives, and then we can eat the cow. The cow gets a great life because they're eating their actual diet of grass, and then we get a healthier cow to eat, which makes healthier humans, and soil is growing. This is one of the techniques of regenerative agriculture in animal integration, where you have rotational grazing. Now, the idea of rotational grazing is that you have these cows out here and you are moving them around. Move the cows around every day, once a day, and then you can bring them back to the same spot maybe 30 days later once the soil has regrown. The concept here is called move in a mob and mow. Okay? Now, these cows are not moving. They are certainly in a mob. This is an example of a CAFO right here. They are concentrated animal feeding operation. They are eating corn, not real grass like they've enjoyed, and they get fatter and they're sicker and they have more burps and farts. Their burps and farts are going to be the greenhouse gas of methane, which is worse than carbon dioxide, which is also up there trapping heat with the greenhouse effect. When instead, if we could take these animals out on the pasture and rotate them once a day for 30 days, keep moving them around. Here's got an electric fence that will hold them in a certain spot, moving in a mob and mowing, just like they evolved to do to stay away from predators. Cows, as herbivores, are trying to stay away from predators with this move, mob, mow. Big cats, big dogs, they have been always chasing these things around. And so now that we're farming these and we've domesticated them for food and dairy and cheese and yogurt, we as humans can be responsible and say, hey, we can give them a good life and we can have them moving around just like they evolved to do in nature as herbivores, and we can grow good, healthy food for ourselves, and we get wonderful soil and beautiful planet. Every time something is growing out of the soil, we have carbon being sequestered. Every time sunlight hits plants, it's green, so it'll absorb it, so we don't have as much reflected heat, and it could absorb it. So it's like a win-win, 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 win-win on all accounts. That's why I get so excited about this stuff, because you will get more food production, more water will be held in, I'm moving this whole thing, more water will be held, carbon storage, carbon sequestration, it's just like wonderful all around. The problem is we have to change minds, and that's why I'm a teacher, that's why I'm talking about it, is because we really didn't know, all the farmers in the past and everyone in the past making processed foods or growing, having cows and CAFOs, a factory farm, we didn't really know that this was as bad as it was. And now we just kind of realize there's a better way to do it for everyone. But having corn-fed cows produces more of that methane that I mentioned. You've got your methane as carbon emissions from fire and any sort of combustion, as well as the cows burping and farting in a CAFO. And those two greenhouse gases just give us more of the heat blanket, that greenhouse effect. These are called carbon emissions. And too hot and humid in a greenhouse, too hot and humid on the earth, that's why we have more extreme weather. Then the ice melts, and the ice being there reflects a lot of heat. So if the ice is melting, not only is it getting warmer, but it's also not reflecting the heat. So that's where we get more extreme weather, because there's just more moisture. It's just hotter. And so it can be higher highs and lower lows and droutier droughts, and so lots of problems, but lots of fantastic solutions for us to keep in mind when we think about these solutions here. I think I wanted to show the CAFO chickens, which just really tough. When you eat a chicken wing like this, you just don't really remember, you don't really think about where it came from. When you eat something real, you can think about a little bit more of where it came from because it looks a little more real, like a real chicken. Now, if you raise your stuff or you grow your stuff, then you're really in a good spot to remember what's real about this stuff. And that's something, oh man, maybe I don't have the picture of the chicken. Anyway, there's the factory farm chickens, right? So we have old school farming and then we have new school farming, right? Work with nature the way it wants to be. Diverse, with healthy soil, not disturbing the soil or destroying it or cutting it up. Have multiple things on there instead of a monoculture that disturbs the soil. that fights nature and tries to control nature too much and just does simple things. This is just, again, we're trying to do one thing in a concentrated area just to have more, but it's not actually quality. It's not a good life for them. It's not good food for us. And it just produces, and building all of this, it's just fossil fuels on fossil fuels. Every time you got to ship the stuff around, you got to grow the stuff. Instead, you can have these cows moving around, and oftentimes they'll have chickens come right behind the cows, and they'll go through the cow poop approximately 10 days later, I heard, and they will pick out the worms. So they get to run around and be real chickens and eat some, protein and really live a great life as chickens out there right behind the cows. And it's just kind of this nice cycle that normally existed with animals in nature. And since we are animals, and we can affect nature and change nature significantly more than any animal in the history of life, I believe it's kind of our responsibility to take care of that. Not only selfishly interested in us wanting to have a planet to live on in the future, but also just for the good of all beings. Test 8, beef and broccoli.